Good morning. This is Patrick D. McCoy, and welcome to Across the Arts. I'm so excited for this latest installment of the Maestro series. This morning, we are joined by Edward Maclary. And if you would give me a moment, I will go back so I can get his bio so we can get started right to this wonderful conversation. Dr. Edward Maclary is widely recognized as one of the leading choral conductors and pedagogues in the United States. Under his leadership at the University of Maryland School of Music, the choral activities program has grown and developed over the past 2 decades into one of the nation's most highly honored. It is known for the professional level of performance by its ensembles, its embrace of the entire spectrum of choral repertoire, and its training of the next generation of conductors and teachers and professional choral artists. Now, I could go on and on and on and on, but that's why we're having this conversation, because I want to hear this all from Dr. Maclary. Good morning, Maestro. How are you?
Good morning, Patrick. It's so good to be with you and so good to have this conversation. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. This is so overdue because we've run into each other so many times at the Kennedy Center at the stage door when your choirs have sung with various orchestras. And it's always in passing. We say, I'm like, Dr. Maclary, we need to chat. We need to have an interview. And now we're finally having it after all these years. So I am indeed honored. Thank you so much.
Now, my pleasure. Yeah, it's as I'm on my way out the door, but yeah.
Now, I like to lead off with this question because it's even though, we've relaxed a little bit with COVID-19 and this pandemic and choral singing and so forth. Could you just tell me a little bit, how did you adapt during that time when everything was frantic with COVID and singing?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Patrick. It was really double tough because I feel, choral music of all of the arts is the most communal and it's the most intimate in many ways because there's nothing standing between the performers and the listeners because it's from the person's body, right? You make the sounds with your throat. There's no secondary instrument standing in the way, and it was very tough to go from being something that did no harm whatsoever to suddenly being the most dangerous thing that you could do in a group situation. In the early days, we all remember the stories of that very sad story out of Washington with the choir that, got COVID all of a sudden and it ran through the entire ensemble. And suddenly choral singing was a very dangerous thing to do. And, the level of unexpectation with that, I think, was staggering to a lot of people, myself included. So it was really very, very tough. And we tried our best to adapt in a number of ways. And of course, school went on. I mean, people still enrolled in classes and still took classes and courses and lessons. But adapting to that and trying to make the students' time well spent and still a learning and growing experience for them, during times in their lives that they would never get back, felt like a huge lift. It felt like a huge responsibility. And honestly, looking back on it, I don't know how well we did or how well certainly I did. But the students, I give them so much credit. If they were frustrated, I never really saw it directed directly at me. They were always on the Zoom camera. They were always game to try something new. They were always willing to, to go places that we hadn't gone. When we were able to kind of get back together a little bit, as time went on and we could rehearse masked but distanced and outdoors and so forth, as terrible as that was from a musical standpoint, it's still they still grasped onto it and really gave their heart to it. And I just couldn't have been prouder of them. I could not have been more disappointed with myself and my lack of, ability to do better. But the students, I felt, really were tremendously adaptable and forgiving and loving about it, and tried their best to still make the time that we spent together worthwhile. We did do some virtual projects. We did a big virtual lessons and carols project. We did a couple of other things, and we did standard repertoire. We had various people come in and do presentations, which was really very helpful. And I went out and did them for other people as well. So everybody was trying, and we even we even tried different solfege systems. We practiced fixed do, we practiced movable do, we practiced on numbers. We tried everything just to kind of give them some extra experiences with some basic musical tools. But gosh, it's so great to be back. I mean, we're now finally, we're still rehearsing masked, but we're going to be able to now perform unmasked going forward for the remainder of the semester. We're excited about that. But boy, it's been a long 2 years, and I salute the students. I salute the students for having come through it with such grace and such dignity.
Well, I want to go back to something you said when you were talking about the students that I thought was fascinating about the Zoom cameras. How did you get the students to get on camera? Because most of the students that I've encountered in various situations and different colleagues have told me they have had problems with getting everybody on the camera. How did you do it?
Yeah, well, it wasn't 100%, that's for sure. I mean, some people, some days are better than others, right? And some days you wake up and you got that bedhead, and even though it's 3 p.m, you just don't want to be seen. I think that's more of a public school issue than it is a collegiate issue, and it's also, I think, true that at least insofar as the UMD chamber singers were concerned, which is the group that I work with regularly, those are all mostly music majors. They're all people that are friends, colleagues. I mean, they see each other every day, not just in the ensemble, but in various classes and studio lessons and so forth. I think they're comfortable with each other. They trust each other. There was a level of community within our group that allowed them to feel comfortable with being, on camera during a Zoom call that I think maybe other situations might not have warranted.
Well, when I have these conversations with various music leaders and conductors and the like, I like to really delve in. So I know I kind of talked about the technical issue of education, things like that, but I want to learn a little bit more about you. So I want to know, what was your first early introduction to music and how you began to get this affinity more or less for choral music in particular?
Well, 2 things happened when I was a young boy, when I was in elementary school. My very, very best friend in school started taking trumpet lessons. And so I thought, maybe I should do that too. And so I kind of banged, on the door, with my mom saying, please, 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 would you get me a trumpet? And, she, I don't know how she found the money for it, but she did. She got a trumpet, and I started taking lessons, and I, started playing in the band, and sat next to my friend, and we played trumpet and together, and that was great. The other thing that happened though was my older sister, was also taking piano lessons, which I was not doing at the time. But she would be practicing her piano lessons, and I would sit next to her and drive her crazy because I would always tell her when she was playing wrong notes, and she, would shoo me away. But I did notice that I kind of had I don't know, I had a sense for, how the music ought to go, and, when it was right and when it was wrong. And so I just, I don't know, I just started, being more and more interested in music. I started singing actually in junior high school, and then in high school. in junior high school, I had a wonderful teacher who exposed several of us, a number of us, to various genres and styles. I mean, I remember he took us, a bunch of us, up to Philadelphia to see our first opera. And it happened to be Lucia de Lammermoor with Joan Sutherland. And so I was starting at the very top. And it took us up to New York to see our first Broadway show. We saw Hello, Dolly with Ginger Rogers. I mean, it was like, you know, I had never experienced anything like this. So he was sort of very instrumental in exposing us to possibilities. And then when I got to high school, at that point, I was still playing trumpet, but I hated the marching band. And I didn't like the uniforms. I didn't like the mud on the field. I didn't like the music. I didn't like all the formations. I was just not made for marching band. So I jumped over into the choir, and they put me in the tenor section, which was crazy because I'm not a tenor, but I could count because I'd been in band. So I think that's why they put me in the tenor section. And the very first day of my choir experience in high school, it was a sectional rehearsal for the tenors on the fourth movement of Brahms Requiem, Wie lieblich ist deine Wohnungen. And of course, it has that beautiful, and I was stunned. I thought, why am I wasting my time playing the trumpet when there's music like this that I can sing? And so I was hooked. And that's when I made the connection to really deeply to choral music, and actually deeply to music as something that was worth spending all of my time on, just not some of my time on. And that sort of launched me on my path. And then I went on and, studied music at university and so forth after that.
Well, wow, you just connected with me, because I remember when I was in high school, probably the first I would consider choral masterwork or excerpt from a masterwork was exactly How Lovely Is Thy Dwelling Place from the Brahms Requiem. So that was kind of touching that we made that connection. Now,
and you know what, Patrick, I don't think you and I are alone in that, right? I think there's probably many people for whom that was a watershed moment, right?
Yeah, that is a beautiful piece, the whole work. But listen, you kind of hinted in the beginning, I was kind of trying to say at the end, you're upon your retirement from the University of Maryland at College Park, after a storied career of just choral excellence and what you have sown into your students. But I want to go back a little bit, because I would like to know if you had like a mountaintop experience or a really peak moment in your career there as far as your performances, what would you say it would be?
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't know that I can pick out one. I can name certainly several. We've done Messiah numerous times with the National Symphony Orchestra, and I would point to many of those performances with a number of conductors as being, really special, with Matthew Halls, with Nicholas McGee, with Natalie Stutzman, with Lawrence Cummings. I mean, just really exquisite performances that were crafted by real maestros, who I respect deeply. I would also name a couple of other performances that we did with the NSO. Early on, we did a St. Matthew Passion that was directed by Helmut Rilling, that I felt was tremendously special and moving. I remember, it's lots of things, as time goes on, lots of things sort of mush together in your brain. But that week and those sets of performances, I actually remember quite clearly in detail. And that was those were really important performances. Oh, sorry, my light went out. This happens.
That's okay.
Sorry, I'm on a timer here. I would say also the War Requiem that we did with Marin Alsop and the Baltimore Symphony was in 2013 was certainly, those were great performances, and boy, what a great work that is. What a tremendous experience that is to prepare and to perform that work. It's such an honor. And working with Marin Alsop on a regular basis has been one of the real gifts for me in my career. Recently, we've had an opportunity to work a lot with John Andrea Nozeda at the NSO, and I think he's amazing. He's an amazing musician. We did John Adams, The Gospel According to the Other Mary, which is probably the hardest score I've ever had to prepare. I remember going back and forth during the preparation of that because one of my graduate students was sort of my assistant in the preparation. And he would call me up and he'd say, Dr. Maclary, I don't think we can do this. It's too hard. And I'd say, oh, no, it's going to be fine. Don't worry. We can do this. And I'd hang up the phone and I'd turn to my wife and I'd say, this is too hard. I really don't think we can do this. We're just, oh my God, this is so hard. And she would say, no, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. So we sort of had this mutual, respect society of just saying, pulling each other down from. It was the hardest thing we ever did, but we did succeed. So that was good. But I'll tell you, Patrick, there's one mountaintop experience that hasn't happened yet that is actually about to happen that I'm so excited for. And it's actually happening starting tonight and then Saturday and Sunday night this weekend. And that is a staged, memorized performance with the four-hand piano accompaniment of the Brahms Requiem in collaboration with the 13, led by Matthew Robertson, who I'm sure you know, local DC professional and chorus. And it's 12 of our students and 13 of the 13, led by Matthew. And it's been staged by Tim Nelson and Corinne Hayes, who run the In series in DC. And we're going to do it once here at Deckelbaum tonight at our concert hall. And then we do 2 more performances on Saturday and Sunday at St. Mark's Episcopal on Capitol Hill. I can't even tell you how proud I am of these students. They are singing the Brahms Requiem completely from memory. They're doing it with staging all the way through. And it's a beautiful, beautiful staging. I've been in contact with this piece now over 50 years of my life. And I am hearing it and seeing it and perceiving it in ways that I never have. It's hitting me in places and in ways that that are unique. And I'm certain that this will be a mountaintop experience for me. And I'm so privileged that it's coming at this point, at this juncture. But so, yes, there have been many, many, many opportunities for us. But I think, this one might be really quite special.
It sounds special. That's amazing. I've heard of so many other works, choral works done in that fashion, but not necessarily the Brahms Requiem. But I'm going to go back to something. This wasn't necessarily one of my prepared talking points, but you inspired me because you prepare these choirs to sing with these great maestros. You're a great maestro, but what I'm saying is you prepare them to sing under another baton, and so without question, they can deliver, and they're a representation of you. And I think it takes a special person to be able to prepare and be in the background, like, wow, another maestro is there, but it's really your glory in many ways. So tell me about when you first get a score from, say like Helmut Rilling. Like, what do you do? He says, okay, we're going to sing the St. Matthew Passion. What are like some of the beginning thoughts that you have?
Well, that's a really great question. Thank you. One of the things that I was taught, because I studied with Rilling many, many years ago, early on, as part of the Oregon Bach Festival when he was the director there. And you'd get up and conduct for Mr. Rilling, and he would never critique your conducting. At first, the very first question out of his mouth after you conducted, whether you had been great or not great or somewhere in between, he would say, "Was ist die Struktur?" What is the structure? How does this music work? And if you had a good answer about how the music was structured, then he was ready to teach you. If you didn't have a good answer, you were politely asked to sit down, and then it was somebody else's turn. And so the lesson there early on was, you really had to have a picture of how the music is supposed to sound in your inner ear, in your mind's eye, before you were really even allowed to approach it from a conducting point of view or from a rehearsing point of view. And that lesson stuck with me. And I had a number of other teachers along the way who reinforced that lesson, was the idea of being able to look at the score and really hear it in your head before you ever apply, rehearsal or gesture to it. And for me, that took a long, long time to be able to do. But once you get that mindset, what happens is you start looking for the way the music actually works and the way it fits, and you start to make decisions about tempo and about rubato and about dynamic and about balance and about phrasing that makes sense, because you're not just guessing at it, you're not just doing it from an emotional level, but you're actually plugging in to text, structure, tone in a way that is much more grounded in reality. And then you have the building blocks to transmit that knowledge to your ensemble. It makes rehearsing so much more efficient. They get a sense of how the music works, and it gives them a way of singing it that's not just from their throats, but it's from their inner ears as well. And when your students can sing the structure of the music, I don't care if they're 18 years old and don't know how to do a 5/7 to 1 chord on the piano. If they can hear it, they can sing it. And so I don't give away anything with my students. I mean, I respect their intelligence, and I respect their musicianship, and I respect their heart to the point where I will transmit every bit of the knowledge that I have of that score in order to give them the tools that they need to then function at a professional level with the NSO or the BSO and professional soloists and professional conductors. It's a leap of faith, and yet I have to be honest with you and say I have yet to be disappointed in my students. They do tremendous work. When they're presented a challenge, they rise to meet it.
You know what I liked what you said when we were kind of on the subject of Maestro Helmut Rilling, is the fact that, if you weren't prepared, he wanted you to just sit down. And that just reminds me of, the experiences I had, as a student, because I've been put out a many of a lesson as well. You come in, you don't study the music, and then you expect this great teacher to pour into you when you don't have anything really prepared. So I'm glad you brought that up. And a lot of people need to take lessons that a person wants to work with someone who is prepared. And that is such a credit to you, and the fact that you prepare those students. And so they go before these great maestros and sing with these orchestras, they are on point. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to kind of go to a lighter question or topic. And I know this is probably a hard question because I ask this one often too. What would you say, what is your desert island masterwork?
Wow. Gosh. Well, I'm sure the answer that you get from a lot of people is I have a list.
Yeah.
And of course I have a list as well. Honestly, though, I will have to say, as much as I admire so many great works, both large and small, in the choral repertoire, there's one piece that I have conducted a number of times, sung a number of times, and prepared for other conductors a number of times, that I find most satisfying to me, and most that speaks to my heart as well as to my head consistently, and that's the Bach B minor Mass. And the reason I say that, Patrick, is that it's a work that is a compendium, an encyclopedia, if you will, of all of the ways that there were at that point in music history in the mid 18th century to compose Western art music. It is literally a canon of the canon.
Mm.
And Bach undertook it not for any purpose. It wasn't ever done as a specific performance in his lifetime. You know, the Kyrie and the Gloria were composed as a gift to the court at Dresden, and then later on he came back to it and he composed the Credo and the rest of the movements after that, and they were largely taken and recomposed portions from earlier cantatas. I mean, it's really almost, it's kind of Bach going back through his own lifetime and extracting more juice from what he's already squeezed. So it has that biographical aspect to it as well from Bach's own point of view. But the music itself is so perfect. It's so perfectly wrought, and it's not just intellectually beautiful, it's emotionally powerful. And I have yet to hear it or experience it in any way, conducting, singing, preparing, whatever, where it just hasn't absolutely made me a better person, transformed me. And I think it has that power. So if I had to pick one piece, I think it would be the Bach Mass in B minor.
Now, you know, my favorite movement that just brings me almost to tears is that Sanctus. It's so ebullient. It's almost like the angels of God are just coming down. Yes. In that Sanctus. I love that piece.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, with wings, big wings in triplets. Yeah.
Now, we've done a lot of talking, so if you don't mind, if you would like, I would like for the listeners and viewers alike to indulge me, I would like to play a clip of you conducting the O Juste by Bruckner, and then we can talk a little further. But let me just share my screen. You know, during this whole pandemic, we've all learned how to, share our screens and so forth. So let me bring this up. And there we go. All right, make sure I share the sound too. That was wonderful. So are conductors like singers? Because I know that when I talk to a lot of singers, they hate to hear themselves sing. So is it the same thing for a conductor? What do you feel like when you watch yourself, in past clips on a video?
Well, I think, boy, that guy needs a lesson. It's interesting because there are some things that I know that I do that I actually preach against for my students. And then there's some things that I do that I'm constantly preaching to them to do. Mm-hmm. And, I think a lot of times teaching is like that, right? You're always trying to help give the students what they need in order for them to, succeed and to grow. But you're also trying to warn them, look, I do this, but it works for me. You might not want to do that because it's, it may not work for you. And I guess you didn't really ask me this question, but I think I'll go there with you if you don't mind. And that is this, so many of the students that have come through this program, oh, there goes my lights again. There they go. So many of the students that have come through this program at the graduate level have gone on to do, really, really fine work in universities and professional assignments and so forth. And I'm very proud of that. Mostly because I get the privilege of working with excellent students, and that's that's my good fortune. But I think the thing that I would have to say, if you were to ask me this, the thing that I'm proudest of in my own teaching of those students is that none of them look like me when they conduct. None of them look like anybody except their own selves. They each have their own unique style that fits them. And I hope that what I've given them as an instructor and as a mentor is a pathway to unlock the best version of themselves when they're up in front of an ensemble, as opposed to a rigid recipe of here's how you do this, here's how you do that. And if you do anything else, then you're not doing it right. I think that's important as a conductor, is that you find the gestural vocabulary and the way of expressing your musical ideas that makes sense to you, and that also gets the best results, from the ensemble.
That is key, and unlocking that pathway, as you kind of put it. So that's amazing. And they see themselves, even though you were their teacher, that's important. Now, I want to stop for a moment because Ed, you have quite a few people on this live supporting you and just offering congratulatory statements. I see Samuel Carabetta is on, and soprano Nicole Heaston Lane is on, giving her regards.
Oh my gosh.
And it was so funny that I was at Turandot, but I missed you. And I saw the pictures after, but I said, how in the world did I miss Ed Maclary at Turandot? But yes, Nicole, I want to read Nicole's comment here. She says, Edward Maclary changed my life. I would not be the singer I am without his guidance. He is a stellar human. That's from Nicole. She's on listening now. And I see
Nicole, I love you so much. And you know that I do. Thank you. Yeah. Nicole is a great artist. Mm-hmm. She's a great artist. And actually, I met her when she was in high school in Chicago, and heard her sing for the first time. And I just said, oh my goodness, this is an artist. This is a great artist. Even though she was, 16, 17, something like that at the time. I heard not just the vocal gold, but the artist, inside her as well. And Nicole is a special person. That's very sweet of her to be on the call, and very sweet of you to let me know that she's listening. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And we talked a little bit just a few minutes ago in the conversation about students, and you've had a very successful career, as a choral conductor, professor, pedagogue, all of these things. But as you know, and as COVID has taught us, we've had to pivot And now that even though we're coming out of COVID, you know, some people might not see professions the same as far as, revenue and being successful and so forth. So if you had to, well, let's put it this way. If you had a person, a young person approach you and say, hey, Dr. McClary, I would like to be a conductor. What is like the first thing that you would say to them in terms of reaching that goal?
So I would never discourage anyone from following their heart.
Mm.
People, I know, I mean, this is almost a cliche, but I do know lots of people who are very, very wealthy and have made, kind of what we would call great success in their lives. And honestly, they're just as unhappy as the rest of us.
Right.
I mean, the rest of us who are, kind of in the trenches, but the thing is that you have to be happy what you're getting up to do every day. And if teaching public school music is what is going to make you happy every day, then absolutely go for it. And if, being a great soprano like Nicole Heaston is what you're meant to do and what you are meant to do, then great, go for it. And it's not even really so much about the outward manifestations of success, whatever that may mean, and it means different things to different people. It's what feeds your soul. I'm happy every day that I walk through this long hallway to get to my office. I'm happy every day, and I've been happy for 22 years. I mean, I'm going to be happy after this too, but being where I am and doing what I do has fed my soul in incalculable ways. And I think that's what you need to do first and foremost. Now, having said that, if you've made that choice, both from a rational point of view and from a really looking inward, this is what I want to do with my time, this is what I want to do with my life point of view, then my next piece of advice is to knuckle down and work your you-know-what off every day to get better at it. Because if you're choosing music, music is absolutely infinite in its repertoire, in its skills, in its challenges. And if you're doing something that involves other people, that it's not just a solo career, but involves collaboration, then you've got to be not just the best musician you can be, you've got to be the best person you can be. And try and be able to, know how to create community, know how to have people gravitate towards working with you and being able to gravitate towards other people to be able to work with them. It's multi-leveled. It's challenging. It's challenging, but I can't think of anything else that I could have done with my life that has been more rewarding than the idea of spending time with great music and great composers and minds so much infinitely more capable than my own, teaching me every day. And then the idea of young, talented, challenging, energetic students feeding me every day with their needs and their desires of improvement and growth, and having me be, for better or for worse, on any given day, the nexus of that communication between student and composer, student and great masterwork. It's a privilege. It's just a privilege. So if you want to go into music, then great. Don't do it for the money. Do it for the soul satisfaction, and then work your butt off to be the best that you can be.
I'm loving something that you said in your response. It was a little bit beyond the music. It was about, first of all, being the best person that you can be before anything else. And then the other thing I got out of that, when you said that the whole idea of creating community, and that made me think about when I saw you and so many other great choral conductors and leaders and arts aficionados at the reception for Dr. Eugene Rogers. And I thought it was so beautiful to see all that camaraderie and the fact that, Eugene became, the conductor of the Washington Chorus, and then Robert Schaefer, who was the longtime conductor of the chorus, was there and sort of passed the baton to him in a way. So that is very important. You have to know how to interact with people. Before you can even open your mouth to play an instrument, you definitely have to be the best person and be demonstrative of being the best person to other people. So thank you so much for touching on that. And this is the part I'm excited about, because you've poured into many students, and I must be honest. When I saw the announcement of your retirement, I was like, what? I mean, I couldn't believe it, like so many other people, but I was just so happy to see that, your successor was Dr. Jason Max Ferdinand, who is such a paragon of excellence in his own right, being at Oakwood University, directing the Aeolians, and just his whole reputation, of excellence. And so if you don't mind, could you talk to me a little bit about Jason and how he was, as a student, and maybe the role that you will continue to have as he takes on this new helm at the University of Maryland?
Well, Patrick, I am always happy to talk about Jason Ferdinand. I will talk about Jason Ferdinand to anyone at any time about, at any moment. So, well, first of all, Jason, as you know, is an alum of the UMD choral conducting program. And he did his undergrad at Oakwood, where he is now, and then he at Morgan State with Dr. Nathan Carter, who of course is one of the great choral conductors of the 20th century. And I remember Nathan called me one day about Jason and said, "I've got this guy, who's really talented, and I think Maryland might be the right place for him." And I said, "Well, Nathan, thank you, and I'll be happy to take a look at his materials and when he applies and so forth and so on." And then Jason did apply, I think maybe a year later, something like that. And the program at that point, I've kept the program deliberately small so that I can give as much time and attention to all the students that are in it over the course of the time. And we only had one opening for that year, actually, that upcoming year, and Jason won out, and wow. he was brought into the program. How should I say this? Jason grew and learned and did his apprenticeship and so forth, and completed his assignments and during the time that he was here. But there was something very special about him that I still, to this day, haven't seen to the degree in other people that he seems to possess. And it is, I've coined the term cheerful insistence for it. Jason is able to work with an ensemble at a level of detail and at a level of specificity, and work on what feels like to maybe you and me as just this minutia of getting it just a little bit better with each iteration, that in the hands of someone else would drive people out of the room. I mean, just, I can't take this, goodbye. But with Jason, somehow it manifests itself into this almost like a seance of a rehearsal where people are absolutely going with him on this little tiny fragment of getting this right and getting that right, and then improving this and then fixing that. And it's this amazing, it's almost like a magic trick of this accretion of knowledge and skill and success and improvement over the course of the rehearsal. And the time flies and everybody walks out of the room feeling like they were absolutely having the best time of their lives, when what they were really doing was just this nitty gritty kind of work. And Jason seems to make it feel like, not like a day at the beach. And I just never, I always wished I could steal some of that from him, because I just don't know that I have that capacity. But Jason seems to have it in abundance, and he's so gifted. He's
Mm.
just so gifted as a teacher, as a rehearser, and his conducting. Oh my goodness, his conducting is gorgeous. It's so poetic and complete. You never don't know where you are in the music. You always know exactly where you are in the music with Jason. Not just from a time management point of view, but from an emotional expressive point of view. You always know where you are. It's uncanny. And I think he is so gifted. I'm so happy that he's coming to Maryland. I can't even, I don't have words. Our students are so fortunate. My colleagues are so fortunate because he is coming to us in the prime of his career, at the height of his powers, and he's going to do great things. He's fantastic.
You know, the internet was all the buzz, when the announcement was made, and, the choral community, and I would just say the music community universally, we're just ecstatic, and, and what it represents. And for you to be, as I mentioned before, and I echo again, yourself being such a paragon of excellence, that you have the opportunity now to see that reflected in one of your students. I mean, it definitely is a credit to you, Dr. Maclary. So thank you so much. And I want to ask you, just as we wrap up. First of all, it's been an honor to finally chat with you like this. And so maybe we have to have coffee in person sometime. But it's truly an honor.
Sounds good to me.
And as we wrap up, I want to know. I know we're talking about retirement, but you still have a lot of stuff to do. So I want to know what's next. So you have to give it all up because I know you don't want to preempt everything, but I could just see you doing, continuing. So do you have anything, that's in the fire for you right now?
Well, honestly, Patrick, one of the issues, with the pandemic was the idea that you couldn't go anywhere. And of course, my wife is also retired now after having led the NSO for many years as the executive director. And so we have a lot of pent up travel demand in our household. And so we're going to start to do some traveling, and we hope that, the COVID situation cooperates with that. Because we have friends, all over the country, and we have places around the world that we'd like to visit. So we certainly plan on doing that. Both of our boys live in the DC area, and we're very blessed and fortunate with that. So we'll get to see them more now and I know that my son will put me on dog walking duty as soon as this spring commencement is over. I'll suddenly have a job, with my son's dog, and I'm going to be doing some guest teaching and guest conducting at various places, and I'll probably take on as much or as little of that as I'm asked to do or that I feel like doing. I feel like I have things to offer, things that I can do, and I still feel like I have good energy that for that kind of a task. I do have some postponed writing projects that I want to take on, and so I'm going to try and start in with some of that as well, and see if I can put some thoughts down on paper of things. Yeah, and obviously I will make myself scarce here at Maryland, but if Jason ever wants me to come in and teach some notes, I'll be happy to do that as well. But I'm actually looking forward to not being here every day and most nights, and I'm looking forward to having a different kind of schedule. So I will try and be a contributor, but maybe not at the kind of the breakneck pace that I've been maintaining for the last 20 something years.
My dear teacher is on watching this interview, and you may know her. She's the director, was a former director of choral activities here at Virginia State University, Mrs. Janella Lucas Edmonds. And so she gives her highest regards
Yes,
and
yes.
congratulations to you as well.
Well,
So
thank
Dr.
you.
McClary, again, thank you so much for joining me. And if you just stay put for a second, but I just want to give my closing statements, and I hope that everyone will share this interview and offer your congratulatory statements and emails and so forth to Dr. McClary. Is certainly worthy of recognition. Again, I am Patrick D. McCoy. You've been watching and listening to Across the Arts. This is the Maestro series featuring an interview with Dr. Everett McClary, who is the Director of Choral Activities at the University of Maryland at College Park. Again, I hope that you will subscribe to Across the Arts on YouTube and continue to follow the broadcast. Again, this is the Maestro series, and I am your host, Patrick D.